Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill.
Well, welcome on the podcast today, Dennis. Looking forward to today's conversation.
Mike, really glad to be here and also looking forward to the conversation. I'm not sure how it's going to go, but it will go.
You are correct. It seems to happen every time.
Yeah.
So let's just start off at the top. Can you tell us what was the inspiration behind you writing this book that led you to explore this topic in great depth of soft skills?
Yeah. Well, the topic's been important to me for a long time. And just in the last few years, I kind of turned from being in operational roles and consulting roles in the industry and decided that I wanted to dedicate myself to carrying a message. And the message has to do with the importance and value of that part of people that we don't appreciate very much in our industry, which are soft skills. And I was at a leadership conference, and the last activity of the conference was to decide and write and put in an envelope a goal that you wanted to accomplish. And my goal was to write a book about soft skills. So that happened in February of 2019. I began writing in March of 2019, and the book was published in December 2019. And what's important about it to me, in terms of the inspiration, was just seeing the need, seeing the fact that we build things, we tear stuff down, we rebuild it, we do all kinds of very important things in our industry, but we don't do a really great job with people, and that involves the relationships on job sites, up to how management deals with each other, how we treat our customers, et cetera, et cetera. So my message is all around that. So the inspiration was, we need to talk about this. And that was really my mentor, a guy named Steve Farber, who wrote the foreword to my book. Steve said, "Do you think you have something to say?" As I was thinking about the book. And I said, yeah. I said, I think we need to talk about soft skills and why they're so important. He said, well, write the book.
Interesting. Yeah, sounds like you made quick work of it too. You didn't let any moss grow under your feet on that goal.
It tells me that it was intended for it to be something that was part of my life journey, was to do this. And then it did come together very quickly. I involved a lot of people. I did some surveying. I conducted interviews. The book is powerful in the sense that it's written in plain English. It's intended for people from their first days in the industry to their last days in the industry. Uses very simple language, and I include a lot of quoted material from my conversation. So it's not me droning on for all those pages. And then ultimately, the capstone, in terms of the inspiration, the capstone was the title of the book. And it was a conversation I had as I was getting ready to launch into the writing process with Steve. And as the conversation ended, he said, hold on a second, I got something else for you. I said, what's that? And he said, I have a title for your book. And his title recommendation was Soft as Steel. And he explained it very simply. He said, because I think there's an analogy here. Steel is to buildings what is necessary to make them something which lasts for a long time. As soft skills, your qualities are to building relationships that will last for a long time. Soft as steel.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So when we hear words like this, and it could be coined as a buzzword or something that people throw around loosely, what do you think people perceive soft skills to be, and how does that maybe differ from your perspective on it after writing this book?
Yeah. Well, I guess the short answer is that it doesn't differ per se, but when people hear the word soft skills, they think they'll say that's the mushy stuff. We don't have time for the mushy stuff, or they'll say it's relationship skills or people skills. They'll give it different captions, or they'll say it's communication skills. All of them, with the exception of communication, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you understand what they really are, which is they're not skills. What they really are is your personal qualities, your attributes, your behaviors, and most importantly, they are really a reflection of your own personal values as an individual. So that's what soft skills are, as I talk about them and as I talked about them in the book. Communication, which a lot of people will confuse when you hear soft skills, they think, oh, it's communication. Communication is a skill. It's a skill that can be improved upon by practice and learning. And it is the skill that's absolutely essential on a day-to-day basis for an individual to be able to get to know people in their lives and importantly at work when they're trying to build a relationship with the customers in particular, but also for those people to be able to get to know you. So you ask questions, you get answers. You make statements like, one of the things that's important to me is if I tell you I'm going to be there on time every day with my crew, I will be there. That's an example of using communication to emphatically convey to the listener that a quality of being punctual is very important to me. And I want you to know that because you can expect me to live up to it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. I think something that's very important, I don't want the listeners to miss out on. You mentioned basically in a roundabout sort of way, you really need to define your purpose or your goal in really going down this journey of improving soft skills. So how do you get alignment? What are some good questions that people can ask themselves so that they could be more intentional at developing these soft skills?
Well, once they understand what the idea is, and that they understand that these are things about them, they need to go about the process of trying to figure out what they are. And for some people, most people can use the benefit of some help, guidance, but and for that purpose, there are a variety of assessment tools that can be used to help a person understand a lot about themselves. What I did in the book was I put together a list of, I think, 40 or 50 words that describe a soft skill or a quality. As an example, the top one was trustworthiness. Probably no surprise, but that was the number one quality. But people have to understand, what does that mean to me? And that was, again, what I did in my research was I asked that question. I said, these are your top three qualities. When you say self-aware, I'm using a different word, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? And they would give me an explanation. Nobody gave wrong answers. They may be been a little off, a little misguided, but the point is, I was causing them to have to think about, how a word describes something about them that other people see. Because here's the bottom line: from your very early stages in building relationships, and as you move up in organizations into senior, highly visible leadership roles, people are watching you. They watch and they listen. And the more responsibility you have, the higher level you are in an organization, the more they're watching, the more they're listening, because they're interested in hearing what you have to say and how that relates to what you do about what you said. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I love that. I think, in society and in business in general, everybody wants the shiny plaque with the, their title or the shiny resume. We all have things that we're proud of, maybe even externally that we think or perceive about ourselves. But what I'm hearing you say, and I completely agree with, sometimes, and I love this phrase, your actions are speaking so loudly, I can't hear your words. So you're talking about actions, right?
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, words mean nothing by themselves. If you're trying, and again, particularly in the context, which is what this is all about the importance of that understanding and appreciation for what your qualities are. These are the good things about you. I mean, we also all have weaknesses, and we need to be aware of those as well. But it's those things that are your qualities, those good things. That's what you need to build on in order to be successful in building relationships. So you need to know what they are. You need to name them. You need to look at this. I may not have understood that, but it makes sense to me. And so, yes, that's something that I need to recognize that people expect from me. And so I'll behave in a certain way because I want to enjoy building relationships. And you'll hear me say that word a lot during this. It may seem like an anomaly, but it's not. But relationships are what it's all about. We're not in the construction industry. We are by industry, but what we are is we are in the people service business, and that's true of every business. So construction is not special. Our job, our opportunity as an enterprise in business is to serve people. We call those people customers, and we also call them employees. But in terms of building the P&L, profit minus expenses equals is where you want to go. You want revenue, so at the end of the day, you got profit. You build profit by building good relationships.
Yeah, as beautifully stated, and I think something that I'm taking away from this is these are timeless principles. I know there's a lot of buzz about, X generation, Y generation, the Gen Z. We've got the baby boomers. So I know each generation has the way that they were maybe raised or how society helped to form or influence them.
Yeah.
What are some things that we can all get on the same page on as it relates to these soft skills that will help us work together with different generations?
Yeah, I think that probably central to this is, and I'll say it in a practical way, is that if you agree with the premise that communication, which is a skill, is something which is important, you can then understand that I have to be sure that as I go about my day to day, that I recognize that communication is valuable. It's essential, in fact, and that each and every day gives me an opportunity to get better at it. Because at the end of the day, communication, and I'm talking about the communication for the purpose of not simply transacting a business deal, getting a decision enunciated. I'm talking about the communication which encompasses all of that, but is the communication which is two-way for the purpose of two individuals using a variety of methods, with the principal one for relationship building being personal communication, trying to convey a message back and forth, and to make sure that at the end of the day, they understand each other. Again, there's a lot of research on the major cause of conflict, and the major cause of conflict is misunderstanding. So in our tough industry, where we serve people, and some of them are very challenging to deal with, and we may be challenging to deal with, we've got to recognize that we need to focus on that particular skill, and each and every day say to myself, what can I do today to do a better job of communicating so that I can get a better result in my interactions with people, and all the while being sensitive or aware of those individuals in terms of, and I'm going to introduce another element to this, be aware of those individuals in terms of what they may be feeling at the time we're communicating with them. Also recognizing what I'm feeling, which is why I say that you can't understand somebody else unless you understand yourself. So emotions, that kind of tip into that for a second, and because you mentioned emotional intelligence earlier, emotions are an absolutely essential ingredient in every human being. We feel them all the time. They vary in terms of their feeling, but they all have an effect on us. And the most significant effect is they make it more difficult for us to engage in a productive and mutually beneficial process of communicating for the purpose of getting things done.
Yeah, there's a lot of, again, buzz and, shiny articles and different things out there that talk about EQ or emotional intelligence. And I think, people may understand that differently depending on their perspective. But at the end of the day, words do matter. And your word selection, which is, you hear the term, we need to communicate better and sometimes even use words. There's more to communication than just the words we use. And part of it is, consider the audience. Who are you speaking with? Is it your child? Is it your spouse? Is it an employee? Is it a boss? Is it a client or a customer? And depending on the audience, that conversation needs to be tilted appropriately to have a meaningful engagement and true communication, not just an exchange of words, but where you understand one another. And in business, especially, it's essential when you're trying to invoke a project or an action that equals the result that customer is paying you for and that they desire, right?
Absolutely. Well, again, at the end of the day, good relationships are based on individuals taking the time to interact with each other, to understand each other, to recognize things about each other that have nothing to do with the technical or business content of the process of communicating. They have everything to do with understanding each other at the basic human level. So this thing, EQ, emotional intelligence, a lot of stuff written on it, and it's been around for decades. But it's become much, again, I get an email every morning, and there's always an article in that talks about emotional intelligence. And it's because it's so vitally important. And you said correctly that, that words do matter. But if you take a step back and look at the research surrounding the process of communication, communication is about sending a message back and forth between two people. You probably have heard, I'm sure you've heard all this, but very quickly I'll say that I just saw it in another article, a slightly different percentage, but words are important. The tone of how you say those words are important. And that's, again, recognizing your audience. But the thing that is the most important is the visual nonverbal component of communication. And for the purpose of just transacting business and building relationships, and again, that's one of my other thoughts from a third section of my book is you can't build relationships online. Again, this is not the same. You and I are going to know each other a little bit after the time we spend together today, but we don't have a relationship yet. This may be the beginning of one, unless I totally screw up this entire process. But again, it's so that takes relationships take time. Again, that's why I said to an audience in a talk I gave last year, I said, there's no getting around this simple thought. Time takes time. You don't just walk in and say that you've got a great smile and a very nicely manicured beard and say, he doesn't have any hair on his head, which is an anomaly. But anyway,
in your world, maybe. In mine, it's not. It's my reality. It's all I know.
But and we can see each other's faces, and that's very, very useful. But at the end of the day, those relationships which will become your sustaining long-term relationships, whether they're in business or in life in general, are the ones where you actually invest time together. And so the pandemic had a significant impact on us, but it forced us to do more of this. And the technology is getting better and better even in the last couple of years. And this is useful because at least you can see what's going on with the person's face. There's so much in the face. You got listen to the face is one of the phrases people say. Listen to the face.
Yeah, and I know everyone listening can relate to this, and you and I certainly can. There's a big difference when you go out to dinner with somebody, you break bread together, and you spend time with one another, and you really honestly feel of each other's spirit and your aura and just the presence that you have. You can connect on a different level, and I think that's what you're getting at. And so the in-person touch, the human touch, that human in-person emotional connection that you can have with somebody is, there's no substitute for that. It can't be faked. It can't be cloned. It's actually an experience, which means it's felt.
Yes.
It's not just heard or seen, right?
Yeah, and you can, but by understanding that, and I think you said it very well, you can close the gap of misunderstanding just on a basic relationship development process. You can also use it in order to deal with closing the gap between the generations. You mentioned generations earlier. I mean, that's a real thing. Each of the generations that are in our workforce today, they have certain different values. The most current new entrant are called alphas. So they're the young teens. But the alphas and the Zs, my generation talks a little bit about. I don't talk about work-life balance. The Xers talk about it a bit, and the millennials talk about it a lot. But that phrase is washing away. What's being talked about more now is simply balance. And so everybody's life is not the same. Everybody's day is not the same. Everybody's interests are not the same. Everybody's background is not the same. So the idea is for an individual, for you to be successful, and also I'll throw in happy in your life, you need to figure out what your balance is.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I've never really heard it stated that way. And as you were talking, I envisioned, I used to be a contractor, used to do construction. I put the tool belt on, I had the hammer, I wore it's hot here in Utah where I was working. So I'm wearing, jean shorts and a t-shirt and a baseball cap. And that's kind of the attire, because you're out, on a hot road for you're working in the elements. But when you said work-life balance, I sat there and I thought, that framer up on the roof, it's not a costume, even though it might be appropriate for the project. I could be a fireman or a police officer, that's still life. It doesn't matter whether it's work or not work, it's life. So when you say balance, I think that's just beautiful. And that's a really key takeaway, I think, for the listeners. You are you 24/7, 365. And so your ethics, your values, your morals, how you treat people, it should be consistent. Otherwise, you're in conflict. You're either in conflict with people at work, or you're in conflict with people at home. You're in conflict with people in your worship services, if you're religious, or you really need to have balance in who you are and how you connect with your life experience in order to be in harmony and have a more fulfilling, meaningful relationship, which is, this is who I am. It doesn't matter where you see me. There is no, well, it's just business ethics, so I'm going to treat you this way. But, if I'm, mowing my lawn on Saturday, I'm going to go mow your lawn too, because I'm already out doing this, and I'm going to be a different person now because I'm in a different role. It's really, you're just the same person all the time, right?
Well, and what you're talking about in a very beautiful way is one of the qualities that a lot of people relate to in our industry, particularly the ones that are highly successful in high level positions in organizations, is authenticity. To be able to describe a leader, if you want to think about the three or four words that I'll describe great leaders, one is great leaders are great listeners. Great leaders care. Great leaders are authentic. So those are three words, and they're all qualities.
I want to thank our sponsor, Foundation Software. Foundation Software simplifies construction operations with a comprehensive suite of different software tools, which include construction job costing and accounting, also project management, estimating, safety, mobile time apps, and construction-specific payroll services. With a singular focus on construction since 1985, Foundation continues to enhance its product offerings. Over the years, they've introduced a construction-specific payroll processing service, including trade-specific estimating solutions known as McCormick Systems and also Estimating Edge. They also have a collection of field-to-office apps called HQ Suite that includes both popular Safety HQ and Project HQ add-ons that integrate with Foundation, and most recently introduced WorkMax time tracking, in addition to its best-class product offerings. Foundation Software is known as an industry leader in training, ongoing support, and programs that help clients continue to educate and grow. They are a partner that's committed to helping contractors on the business side of construction. For more information, call 1-800-246-0800 or email at info@foundationsoft.com or click the link below in the episode description. Yeah, and it's interesting too, because you think of, and I listen to all kinds of podcasts, and I follow a lot of self-help and personal improvement, business, and entrepreneurship, and all these things. And I hear some people love the word authentic. Some people they don't like the word. They're like, well, wait, why do we have to define that? You just are, right? So I think being authentic is I think it's a great word. It's a good reminder that you need to be you wherever you are. And if you don't like what you're doing or how you're behaving or what the result is, well, then you need to make some changes. And that doesn't mean, again, on Sunday, I'm one person when I'm, in a worship service, but the next day I'm this, this cutthroat businessman who's going to win at all cost, take my enemies down, and, really combat in a way that is in conflict with maybe the other part of my life that I'm trying to be different in. So I think it's just a beautiful thought to think about. Having integrity is the word that comes to mind with me, where you're just consistent all the way through. And whether you see me out on the job site, or you see me at the gas station, or you see me in the yard playing catch with my son, or helping my daughter ride her bike, I'm the same guy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful. I think one other quick thing that I wanted to discuss in the construction industry in general, I don't like stereotypes in life generally, because everybody has the opportunity to do and be and act however they choose. But I think there is that perception that we're blue collar guys, we're tough, I can do everything myself, I don't need any help. There's this, maybe a perception that because of that, versus somebody maybe who's white collar, who doesn't know how to fix the sink, who always hires it out versus, the guy that gets in and gets dirty and gets under there, knows how to turn a wrench. I think as individuals, it's important that we understand that these soft skills you're speaking about are important for everybody. And how do we overcome maybe the misperceptions, or there's those things that could be confusing on what society perceives maybe our industry as, and what we maybe perceive ourselves because of that?
Yeah, that's again, that's something which has come into focus and been of more interest and concern to people who are trying to just generally tell a different story about the construction industry in order to try to make it something which is of interest or attractive to the younger generations in particular. Again, the construction industry looks like it's, you get dirty, you break your back, you break your knees, and then you retire. And again, I will give credit to the gentleman by the name of Mark Breslin, who is out on the West Coast, one of the industry's best thought leaders, in my opinion. And his big campaign, or his bully pulpit topic is that you are professionals. If you're in the trade, you are professionals. You're not just tradespeople. You are professionals. You've learned things. You have skills. You have abilities. You care about the quality of your work. You try to do the work safely, and it goes on and on and on. And that's the story that needs to be told, particularly for the younger folks. And we're beginning to have some success, but we still have a long way to go, because again, the boomers are heading out the door, and what's leaving with them is just resource capacity, number one, but also a tremendous amount of experience that is not being transferred to them, to the younger generations that are coming in insufficient numbers. So we see much more activity around trying to make the industry attractive to women, which makes total sense. Again, women are over 50% of the eligible workforce. They're a low single-digit participant in the construction industry. Also, people of color. So there's a lot of opportunities out there, but we've got to change the narrative. And Sean Strickland, who is the executive director of the Canadian Building Trades Unions under the North American Building Trades, one of his missions is to tell a different story about the construction industry, and that makes total sense to me. Any opportunity we have to try to demonstrate that just because your parents had a particular experience, and that included high school, college, job, that not everybody is built in terms of how their brain has been wired from birth in order to be a person that sits at a desk all day long. It's just not. They're not wired that way. But they've never had a chance in many cases. When I was in high school, which is decades ago, we had auto shop, we had welding shop, we had wood shop, and that was all part. That was an important part of the high school experience. If you chose to go and try those things, that's how people in those days, back in the 70s, ended up coming into the construction industry. They came out of high school and then went to an apprenticeship program in either an open shop setting or a unionized setting, and that's how they began their careers. So we need to be telling a different story. I'm not sure. I think I wandered off a little bit. So let's reel me back in. But those are my thoughts.
Well, no, I think that's great. I think it leads really right into where I wanted to maybe wrap up at least this initial conversation. I know your book talks about the importance of mentors, and I think that's a part where those of us that have life experience, that have wisdom gained, that have learned through the School of Hard Knocks, whether that be college to whatever, and now we're in the construction trade, running a business, or we're a manager or a CFO, whatever role it might be in within your organization, there's an important responsibility, and I will call it that, an obligation that we have to mentor these young folks or these new people that have joined our industry, and help them understand some of the things that you're laying out here. And also, I think raising the bar and saying, yeah, we are professionals. This is, and we've said it a lot on this podcast, and I hear it everywhere I go. The electrician that lives next door, he's making more money than some of the software programmers that I know. I mean, you can make a lot of money in construction, and I just don't believe, and not that chasing more dollars is the whole thing, but it is a tool, and it is something that can help change your life when you have those resources and figure out how to put them in the proper place to grow. And so how do we help mentor younger folks to recognize that this is actually a career opportunity that you could aspire to, and you could have some of these hard skills that construction is known for and do a better job and be more efficient and be more successful by adding those soft skills to those and combining that together.
Mentoring is something which, again, is more frequently being heard or talked about across the construction industry.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the initial pushback when the idea of mentoring is, and some people think when they think mentoring, that means every once in a while you'll get together with the guy at the end of the day and show him something. Well, that's not what mentoring is. Mentoring is a relationship between an experienced individual, and it may be a variety of different kinds of experience. That individual is someone with less experience, capabilities, or skills, but it doesn't have a defined. We do this one time a week for an hour. Again, it's a fluid relationship. There is a basic framework of a process to conduct mentoring, and there's some really good training material that's been developed and disseminated across a number of parts of North America, and it describes just how to go about doing it, but it does require fundamentally a commitment of time, and again, everybody that has a job is sensitive to I come to work, I do my job, I get my paycheck. I mean, that's the old way of looking at it, but it's still, there's nothing wrong with that, because again, that's why you work, to earn a living. But what they haven't recognized and done enough of is to do what you talked about initially, and that is to say that it is a responsibility in the trades of journey persons to mentor apprentices, and it's also a responsibility and opportunity for some of those apprentices to mentor some of those journey persons, or even a foreman or superintendent, on things like how to use a smartphone, or how to use, some other kind of technology. And more technologies are coming into the industry. I don't think there's an overall, fear that it's going to take jobs away, because it's not. It's just different types of tools. And the younger generations are much more, can adapt to those, learn them more quickly, and they may have an opportunity to mentor someone with more experience on just how to use some of the technology tools that are coming into play. So mentoring's huge.
Two-way street. That's
Absolutely.
Great and well stated, and good for us to remember. Just because we've been doing this for 30 or 40 years or 20 years, we don't know everything. We just know what we know. So yeah, let's share what we have in our brain and help. I think we've all heard the phrase, teach a man to fish and feed him for life, right? Well, teaching is hands-on. It's driver's ed before you get your driver's license. It's range and road. You're actually implementing the knowledge as you go, and you've got somebody that's there riding shotgun with you, that has control of the brakes, that is coaching you. And I think we just need to be very intentional with how we help somebody, not just listen and hear, but also work with them physically, hand to hand, together, and let them fail, let them get some bumps and bruises, let them learn the hard way a little bit if it's not too costly, so that they'll remember that forever and take that torch forward, right?
And that reminds me to say that, this whole idea of mentoring, just in general, in order to be successful as a mentor, you have to recognize and use soft skills. You have to, if you're a certain personality type, which is all about getting stuff done, don't ask me any questions. And there are people like that. Nothing wrong with them, but there are people like that. Then that person, if he's mentoring someone, has to say, well, I'm going to have to be more patient. So I'm going to have to manage myself. And that gets us back to emotional intelligence and self-awareness. You need to, if this is going to be difficult for these reasons that have to do with your qualities, it's up to you to say, I can manage myself. I can adapt so that I can be successful in supporting this person who's showing potential, but may need me to show them how to do a specific operation 2 or 3 times, and then give them feedback on it, whatever the scenario is. But the point is, that gets to my kind of closing thought about soft skills. Soft skills address it's not about what you know, it's not about what you do, it's about how you are when you're doing what you do. And you can be that. I'll use a trade example. You can be that painter that has got the reputation of being the best painter that's ever worked for this company, but we can't put him on any crews. We got to send him off to do, touch-up work all by himself, or we give him an entire floor by himself, so he doesn't affect anybody else.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, then you could check that, and there's no blaming, there's no finger pointing. It's and again, and okay, I'm going to get mushy. Instruct with love. Be kind. Give grace.
Yes,
it's okay. Mistakes are great. It's better to make them quicker.
Yes.
So we can move on and get better, faster, and not make them for years and years and years, only to get whacked on the nose of the newspaper every time you do it without, having that experience early of proper correction.
And that is not an anomaly, I would say. Not an anomaly. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, this has been a very fun conversation. I've really enjoyed this today. Can't wait to dig into the book myself and figure out what else is going on in that shiny brain of yours.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. It was a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, before we wrap up completely, so we played a little word game, and I assigned a word to Dennis, and the word I gave you was anomaly, and you used it well a few different times, and I appreciated sharing that with you as well. What word did you give me, and how did I do at using it?
Well, I was getting a little nervous there until right at the end, when you finally were shiny, by saying shiny right at the end. I'm frankly a bit of a disappointment, because everybody can see why I might have come up with that word, right, as they view this
right here.
Yeah, a little bit of that going on.
The Chrome Dome.
Yeah. Great time
Awesome.
talking to you. Great
well,
time.
Thank you. Any parting words? Anything else you want to state before we wrap up for today?
Something you'll hear me say a million times: soft skills matter.
Beautiful. Love it. Thanks again, Dennis. We'll connect again and have another conversation down the road.
Outstanding.
Thank you for joining us today on the Mobile Workforce Podcast, sponsored by About Time Technologies and WorkMax. If you liked the conversation we had today, or were able to learn anything new or helpful, please make sure to follow us on our WorkMax page on LinkedIn and on Instagram at WorkMax_. And subscribe to the show on iTunes or your preferred podcast platform so you will never miss another insightful episode. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review and share the show with your friends and colleagues. Your support means the world to us and will allow us to continue providing impactful information with others looking to improve their results in their business and, in turn, their life.